Day. Who's excited to be here? Woo! How many of you, this is your first Alliance Day? Good majority of the room. How many of you have been here for more than 5 Alliance Days? The other majority of the room. Awesome. Welcome. We are excited to have you here. My name is Kelli Kravetz. I am the Software Product Marketing Manager for LabVIEW and NXG. Many of you were in this room for the last session, for the roadmap session. We've done a lot for the latest. There's been a lot of development over the years. Part of what I do for my job is being able to better understand what our customers' needs are and being able to push that back out to our messaging to describe LabVIEW and LabVIEW NXG to the world. So I am eager to hear more from you of what your thoughts are on the product, more from how LabVIEW helps you solve your challenges and your problems, because we're recognizing the complicated systems that you're building, and we're excited to be able to pour that back into you. With me today, I have Bulua. He's one of our EOP marketing engineers. He is going to be driving some of the demos for the new features in both LabVIEW 2019 and LabVIEW NXG. So give him a warm welcome here as well. All right, we're going to jump on into it. As you probably are aware, there is this whole What's New in LabVIEW 2019 or LabVIEW NXG presentation. How many of you have been to this presentation in previous years before? All right, so you know it's going to be slam-packed, filled with lots of features, several demos. I'll try to answer some of the questions during the presentation, but there's probably going to be a lot, so we might have to hold some of them for the end. With me in the room, can I have those of you in product management, product planning, raise your hand real quick? These are the folks in the room. We've got Rita in the back and Eric and Deb in the front. They are very influential to decide what is the roadmap for the product. They're very eager to hear what are the features that you want for these next releases, and they'll be able to communicate some of what's to come if you weren't able to get to the roadmap session. Also, those of you from LabVIEW R&D, whether it's LabVIEW or LabVIEW NXG. All right, so these are the folks who have the deep dive for all of these features. I'll be able to field some of the questions, but many of the deep technical stuff that I know that you're chomping at the bit for, they'll be able to be the resource for you there. How many of you know Fabiola? So she is a popular woman. She has really been driving this effort, this Our Giants Are Female, where we're highlighting scientists and engineer women who have just made a huge impact on society. So the woman I chose for this presentation is Margaret Hamilton. How many of you have heard of Margaret Hamilton before? Awesome, a couple people. Well, she is pretty impressive. Most of you, if you're using LabVIEW, are familiar with how complicated coding and programming can be. Can you imagine what it was back in the early stages, where you were one of the first trailblazers to design what is coding? She is a computer scientist. She was one of the people to coin the term software engineering as a way to describe what she was doing for the world. Her work was helped get us to the moon and helped a lot of the resources for the Apollo mission. So for the rest of the sessions that you'll see this week, especially if you're going to some of the CPAD sessions, you'll probably see some more of these Our Giants Are Female. If you are presenting and you're curious to give a tribute to another female, we are excited to have this trend carried forward. All right, so getting back into why you are here. LabVIEW is purpose-built for test and measurement, and it's enabling all of you in this room to impact change and to be more productive in creating everything from your simple data captures all the way to these really complex architectures that we're continually impressed by that help you solve all of the very difficult engineering challenges that you're facing day by day. Over the years, we are listening to the feedback that you have about the product, so we're taking it in directions that are most relevant to help you face some of those challenges. So some of the feedback that we've been hearing of what you need in LabVIEW is coming in the terms of you want improvements to the G language and IDE productivity improvements. You need some optimization of the resources that you have to be able to achieve more with your individual projects. And we know deployment is a pain, especially as your projects are getting more and more complicated. Are any of these resonating for many of you? You've probably heard them from you. As we're receiving that feedback for LabVIEW, we are putting some of that into product for LabVIEW 2019, LabVIEW 2020, and so on. But we also are taking that as an investment into the future of LabVIEW, which is LabVIEW NXG. So we're receiving it, and some of these features are going to be coming in to LabVIEW, and some are going to be pushed right into LabVIEW NXG. When we ask you specifically about LabVIEW NXG, a lot of you are really excited to use the product, or maybe are using it currently, but you're just waiting for feature parity. You're wanting to have every feature that you know and love in LabVIEW, and you're wanting it to be completely filled out, so that can be your transition point all the way over. We still encourage you to start trying LabVIEW NXG if you haven't yet already, because there is quite a bit of feature parity already in the product. Many of you are also requesting hardware support. We hear you. It's on its way. You'll see the hardware supported list already. And also you're asking for technology advancement. We recognize that solving the challenges of technology that are just today isn't good enough, and we need to be able to help you future-proof your systems by putting some advanced technology in. So what we currently have released today, starting Monday of NIWeek at Alliance Day, is LabVIEW 2019 and LabVIEW NXG. These two versions are improving developer efficiency in automated test and measurement, all the way from the design stage through deployment. So for many of these features that you'll hear, we're hoping to shave hours off of your development time, or maybe even days, depending on what your current situation is. Throughout this presentation, there are a ton of features, and so I wanted to introduce to you what themes you'll be seeing throughout the presentation, so that you're able to better focus on the individual feature and help connect that to what your workflow is. The first theme that we'll be talking through is program with purpose. So LabVIEW is purpose-built for test and measurement, but what do these new features of program with purpose actually mean? So some of these items that you'll be looking for is what are we doing to put into features and into product to enable you to use the best tool or IP or function for the task at hand. We also are wanting you to program with purpose by being able to find the resources that you need to do your job better, easier and faster, as well as improved interoperability. We recognize that sometimes systems and the code that you're working with, you have to interoperate with a lot of different sources. We want that to be easier for you. The second theme that we'll dig into is debug with insight. This is going to highlight some faster debugging practices, as well as give you more informed history and data visualization, so you're able to better see what's going on in your code to reduce the time spent in the debugging phase. How many of you, your favorite phase of the whole development process is in debugging? One person, okay. Maybe there's some conversations you can share with other people to have them enjoy it. But our whole idea is we know that you don't like spending the majority of your time in the debugging phase. That's not where all of the creativity is. We want you to be able to minimize the frustration points in the process and go from there. And finally, deploy with ease. We have put a lot of attention towards dependency management to help you reproduce your systems faster and be able to have web-based data access. You'll see these themes throughout the presentation, and so we'll jump right into it. Program with purpose. We are introducing in LabVIEW 2019 two new data collection types. So we're introducing maps, which are implementing key value lookup tables, and sets to give you self-sorting unique lists. So with this, these are the first new data collection types that we've introduced into LabVIEW since arrays and clusters. Were any of you using LabVIEW when arrays and clusters were implemented? One person? Awesome. Couple of people? So this is pretty exciting for us. We recognize that a lot of you have been using variant attributes to solve the challenges needed for some of these key lookup tables and to put in set functionality. This is not what we want for the intention. We recognize that this was a possibility for you to be able to get the job done that you needed, but we want to make this easier. If you're curious to learn more about sets and maps, I encourage you to go to Christian Altenbach's session, which is tomorrow afternoon, which is specifically talking about transitioning from variant attributes over to these new data types. And I will be posting these slides. The app that has all of the session content and the printed schedule, these are all ways that you can get into this, as well as if you want us to have photos of these so that you can look at them later. I understand that this is a common practice. So, yes.
So that session actually switched to today. It switched with Dimitri's great presentation. So it's not tomorrow.
I don't know if it's 3:30, I think.
Same time as mine.
It's 3:15. The 3:15 slide.
All right, so for those of you in the back of the room that didn't hear that, this session time has switched to this afternoon. Do you know if it's been updated in the app? It has? Okay. So check the app. This is where the most up-to-date information is. Next, in the theme of programming with purpose, is error management key structures. So we recognize that you're not just doing simple error handling where you're having all of the errors that you might possibly see in your code all happen within one beautiful case. This is really helping you do what you need to do instead of having to do some parsing of the error cluster. How many of you have found this to be a pretty common practice? All right, so in LabVIEW 2019, hopefully you won't be doing that anymore. Next, we have heard a lot of you are using JSONs, and LabVIEW inherently didn't do this quite so great. And so as we were going through the process of figuring out what about JSONs do we need to add into LabVIEW functionality, we realized that, you know what, the JDP Science Toolkit already did it. And so rather than reinventing the wheel, we're leaning on our community to provide the support that you're already doing and be able to help people who are using LabVIEW that might not be so plugged into all of the different facets of the community because it's pretty large. So we are adding a link from the palette. So if you're searching JSON, you'll be able to see this link. This will guide you to VI Package Manager to be able to download the relevant toolkit. You'll see this functionality a lot as we are trying to expand this. Last year with the LabVIEW FPGA floating point library, we had the same functionality. You'll see this over time with other toolkits that we're trying to implement into the product. So this is more on that find your resources easier. Show of hands, who's used this toolkit before? All right.
Show of hands, this is awesome.
Thanks, Ellen. Next, I'm assuming this question for this room of Alliance partners. Who's familiar with the LabVIEW Idea Exchange? How many of you have had an idea that you've put into product? How does that feel? Great. So we want to expand the community. We want people to realize that their ideas actually do get into product. So as a reminder, kudo each other's ideas, post each other's. I see a lot of people being able to recognize, oh, there was this idea, let's all add the kudos instead of having these duplicates. That's what we want so that our R&D teams and our product planning team are able to better do that. Throughout this presentation, we don't have time to go into all of the different features, but we do have a lot that came from the Idea Exchange. And so we just want to thank you for your input and thank you for kudoing so we know what the percentage and relevancy for some of these features is for you. Next, we're going to transition over to what programming with purpose means for LabVIEW NXG. Because LabVIEW is one cohesive product, we have two different versions, LabVIEW 2019 and LabVIEW NXG 3.1. We will be going back and forth. With LabVIEW NXG2, we have the interface for MATLAB. So this is able to help you reuse your MATLAB IP with the LabVIEW NXG environment. So what this looks like is you're creating an MLI file, which is able for you to be able to pull that code in. You'll be able to then use that function just like any other set VI on your diagram to be able to interoperate with it. Additionally, you can debug and modify the MATLAB code while you're running the VI, which is pretty fantastic. How many of you are using MATLAB and LabVIEW in the same application? That's amazing. Next, we are also focusing on interoperability by allowing you to call registered .NET assemblies in LabVIEW NXG. How many of you are using .NET assemblies? Okay, so more hands in this room. Some groups are different in sizes. So with this, you do have to have your .NET assembly registered in the gap, but you're able to bring that into LabVIEW NXG. Transitioning on to debugging. How many of you are currently working with PPLs in your systems? Good show of hands. How many of you enjoy debugging a PPL? How many of you wish you wouldn't have used a PPL when you realize you have to debug your PPL? All right, so with LabVIEW 2019, we are adding functionality to the replace with, which allows you to go back to the source code. Deb mentioned this earlier in the roadmap session. And so Michael is going to give us a little demonstration of what this looks like in LabVIEW 2019.
Well, hi everyone. Is this mic working? I've been told that it has to be very close to my mouth.
I'll just hold this.
No, it's okay. All right, so as Kelly said, my name's Michael, and I'm very happy to demonstrate with you the new Replace With feature to allow you guys to replace your PPLs with the original library file to make it easier to debug your PPLs. So in this demonstration, I'm a developer, and I've created an application that is grouping a lot of different math operations. Oh, thanks, Kelly. A lot of different math operations together in this library. So I have addition, division, multiplication, subtraction. And I built it into a packed project library that I can then use in various execution projects. So let's open up this other project where I've taken my PPL and I've used it to build a calculator application. So we can run it, and we'll notice that we're saying 5 plus 4 is 128. Something's clearly not working. We have a bug in our code. So previously, this would mean we have to go back to our original library, rebuild the PPL, and then have to deal with the linking issues of deploying it back into our other projects. But now we can simply go to our execution project here, right-click on our PPL, replace with, and then locate the library file. Now that we've replaced it with our library, we can go into our addition VI, debug it, so we see here we have the wrong math operation. All right, save it. And now just like that, we're able to debug our PPL. We can now go back into our development project. Everything has been linked for us. We can rebuild our PPL. And now our execution project is able to work. We didn't have to spend a lot of time debugging it or rebuilding the PPL and deploying it. And now we can have our execution project work without too much effort on our part. So we'll just show it working. And there we go. We've debugged our PPL.
Awesome. How many of you are excited to use this when you get back to the office? Good.
That's probably the software engineering practices. So I'm in part of using CPL is using the library that I should know is never get. This is a version item that you have to report back to whoever is yeah. But I guess if you don't actually get the first version.
Right, so I guess the idea here is you're testing out your PPL in various executions before you give it to the
Or you
team
give it back
members.
to me to record it on, and I say send you your code and I swap it out.
Exactly.
It's not something that
Right, exactly.
To recap that, for those of you in the back of the room, Alan brought up a point of, I thought the point of using a PPL was so that there wasn't modifications, so that it was a version-controlled item. This is true, and so this feature will only work if you have access to the source code. And so if you are going to that replace with, you have to identify where the original library was in order to get into that. So this will still save you time if you still are the owner and maintainer of the code. When they report a bug back, whether it's a PPL and they have access to the source code or not, this will still make that process a lot faster for you as the owner of that.
It's an overall thing. Yeah, it's a good thing to have.
Just a small note about the feature, it also works for replacing library with library. If you're stepping through versions, it's a general replace with tool for swapping out, I want to go from this version of the code to that version of the code. It's not just PPL to not PPL, though that is the one it was designed most for.
And it only goes one layer deep, correct, for the replacement? So if you have layer PPL hierarchy,
Correct.
it's only going to go that one layer. So if you have to drill down, you have to keep doing that throughout your library.
Correct.
Stephen is nodding that it only goes one layer deep until you keep doing the replace with deeper and deeper and deeper. For those repeating the question, yes?
With the multi-layer application, do you have to do the topmost one if I wanted to do like the third tier down? Because the third tier down would be hard-coded in the upper layers to access other backbone.
Stephen is nodding, yes. For those of you that don't know Stephen Loftus-Mercer, he has implemented a lot of the functionality that you know and love in LabVIEW today. So
This one isn't mine, but I'm adjacent.
yes. All right, any more questions? Cool. I expected that there were going to be a lot of questions on the implementation, so you guys met my expectations. Thank you. For those of you who don't use PPLs already, if you're curious about what this actually looks like, there is another session. I'm hoping that the... Excellent. So if you are looking to improve your knowledge of what PPLs are and how to use them and some best practices and what you should be avoiding, go to the session. Is this time still correct?
Yes.
Yes.
We
Awesome.
only have 168.
You only have 168?
Only.
Okay.
You're a piker.
Yeah.
Great. Next, we are implementing history probes natively in product. How many of you are using history probes that you've downloaded the example code? All right, a couple of hands. The history probes were one of the most frequently downloaded example code from our website. And so year over year, this has been updated and kept true. We know that you all are using them. There's a lot of functionality that you can gain from having access to historical data. Michael's going to do a quick walkthrough of what this looks like so that you can see the time and efficiency gains that you're able to get from the history probes. If I can debug PowerPoint.
So in this demonstration, I've gone ahead and created a simple ATM bank account VI that is based on state machine architecture. And as I soon run it, we're going to realize that we have a bug in our code, the functionality is not working as expected. And with the new pros with history, it gives us another tool in our tool belt to gain more insights in the debugging process to make it a bit less of a headache and easier for all of you. So let's go ahead and run our VI here. So we'll see that I can deposit different amounts into my account. My total amount will change, and I'll get a nice message on the bottom here. However, when I try to withdraw different amounts, we'll notice that I can't take my money out. The buttons aren't having any effect here. My total's staying the same, and the message is not changing. So let's use the new Pros with History tool to figure out what's going on. So here is my code, and I'm going to add a Pros with History in order to see each state that my code is going through in sequential order. And this is great, as I'll be able to verify that the code I developed is doing what I expect it to. So if I right-click on my wire, I can go to Custom Probes, and here we have our history probe, which we can place down. And we can also add a generic probe that we're all familiar with to see the difference and compare the two. So now we could run our code again. And I'll switch to my probe with history. And when we press the deposit button, we'll notice that we're going to our deposit state, which is doing the functionality and adding to our total. We're updating our user interface, and we're waiting for the next button click. However, when we go to our withdraw, we notice that we're just going to our withdraw state and then waiting for the next button click. So we're never updating our user interface. So with that new insight gains, we're able to go back to our code, go to our withdraw state, and we notice that our enum constant is incorrect. It should be going to our update UI. So we can make that change, and now when we run our code again, we'll notice that it's working properly. So with the new tool, we were able to gain more insight into our code and make the debugging process a bit easier for us. Yeah?
Do history probes only work on strings?
They work on all data types.
I think there
yeah.
is a subset of
I think
data types.
Data types.
I think it's in the notes of the slide.
Yeah.
We pulled it back up in the presentation, unless you've been handing off the top of your head.
It is a subset. It is an extensible subset. But it's more than.
It's more than just strings. The reason why I'm placing it on a string here is to just get the actual state instead of the value that the email would output.
Is historical probes based on X symbols?
No, no.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Our historical.
No.
Can you do a probe on Platteview for the history?
If you not with what's built in, no. You have to build some tooling around that.
The question was, can you do historical probing for classifiers? You need to add some additional coding in that too.
You'd have to build up a custom probe for that.
But you can build custom probes. So it supports integers, floating points, complex strings, paths, and booleans. All right. Transitioning over to LabVIEW and NXG again, we have added debuggable executables into LabVIEW and NXG. As we're building out the product, we do have a prioritization of getting you functionality in LabVIEW and NXG as quickly as possible. We released in LabVIEW NXG 2.0, which was about 1.5 years ago, the application builder. Now the application builder has executable or debuggable executables. What many of you might not be familiar with is the LabVIEW NXG FPGA module. This was released back in November. It does support a limited number of hardware devices. So the LabVIEW NXG FPGA module on its first release was aimed for folks doing specific clock-driven logic. So those of you who are familiar with the single cycle time loop, basically the LabVIEW NXG FPGA module supports that functionality. This was targeted at a subset of customers, specifically working with some of our USRP targets and FlexReal hardware. One of the debugging features within the LabVIEW NXG FPGA module, it's a mouthful product, is the ability to have accurate, accurate simulation probes. So you're able to have the information about what was going on in previous iterations of your FPGA code. Any questions so far? All right. How many of you are working with USRP and FlexReal hardware? Very few hands. Okay. So this might not be ready for you yet, but we are still investing heavily into the development of LabVIEW NXG FPGA. Finally, on to deployment. Who of you is frustrated with all of the work that goes into deploying your code, especially to multiple systems? We hear you. Another new product that we're announcing is we are moving some of our Linux targets over, or some of our PXI targets over to have Linux RT support. And so what this means for you is if you are used to programming in real time, we have moved our new PXI development, some of it over to be Linux-based RT. And so you're able to get some of the benefits that you get inherently from Linux-supported hardware, like the flexibility of Linux with the determinism and reliability that real-time operating system gives you. How many of you are programming in LabVIEW real-time? A good number of folks? Okay. This will be able to give you a lot of what you have seen when we moved over Compact Rio over to Linux-based real-time. 2013? Okay, thank you, Deb. So in 2013, when we started moving Compact Rio over to Linux real-time, we are now moving PXI over to that. Some of the key applications are PXI-based HIL systems, or if you're doing research prototyping production, some of this that are already on the PXI platform. When we release the hardware, we also release LabVIEW real-time module support for that hardware. And so if you're programming LabVIEW real-time, you will see this added support. There are some caveats as we are still new in the release. I believe it just released this month, Linux for RT. There are some driver support that aren't quite there yet. If you're curious about what is the roadmap, Rita back in the back of the room, she is really wanting to know what are the use cases, especially if you have prioritized drivers that you really need support for right away. She is helping craft the roadmap for Linux, or for LabVIEW real-time module. If you're curious to learn more about Linux and NI, there is a session on Thursday held by Mike Denton. He'll be able to go in a little bit more to the technical details of what this means. Any questions? All right. Next, we are also moving more towards package technology. We recognize that there's a lot of benefit in using some of the industry standard packaging mechanisms, and we have introduced packaged installers and auto-publishing feeds for LabVIEW 2019. And so what this means for us is the ability to distribute your installers that have package dependencies, so you're able to quickly make modifications there, as well as be able to auto-publish those feeds. So if you have users that are relying on code that you're making, you can auto-publish that package so they can be subscribed to that feed. So whether you're working with NI Package Manager for your distribution, or if you have folks that are needing to push the code that you're creating up through System Link, you're able to do that push automatically. There is a lot of sessions about what tool do you use for which type of deployment and which type of use case. So a lot of questions arise around when to use NI Package Manager versus EI Package Manager, as well as different libraries. I encourage you to go to as many of these sessions as you can fit in your already busy schedule. So there's code trafficking, smuggling your software, sharing LabVIEW code, what tools are good for what, LabVIEW reuse and package management, best practices for building and distributing component applications, as well as if you're curious about what is the system link process with your LabVIEW code, you can have that for automating app distribution installation using system link server in the NIWeek. It's a long session there. How many of you are already familiar with what the workflow is in NI Package Manager and working with LabVIEW code? Very few hands. Okay. This is going to give you a quick run-through of what is the process if you have a development computer, which has this kind of pale yellow color so that you're able to see the difference when I'm going back and forth. So if you're making a modification to your code, you're going to first start off and build your package. Then you'll go into distributing the package, so whether your feed is hosted on a local machine or a network folder, or if you're hosting it in the web, you'll be able to distribute the package to where your sources are. You'll then, on your target machines, however many of them there are, you can register the feed, and so you can subscribe for updates, basically. Additionally, you can browse for and install packages. So if you have specific drivers or specific other packages that you're looking for, you're able to do this here. And then back on your development machine, we recognize generally you don't just have one go of your software creation. You're going to make a change down the road at some point in time. When you make that change, you'll rebuild that package. And installing updates for all of those who are subscribed to the feed, they will get a notification up in their NI Package Manager window in the update section saying there is something available for you for the system that you're working with, and then they're able to install the update straight from there. Does this sound like an easier workflow than what you're currently doing to subscribe? I see one question back here. Does this include EXEs? Yes.
Is there tools and support for kind of building up dependencies if you have kind of a large hierarchy of components?
Are there tools and supports for building up dependencies? Yes, there are tools and supports. I'm not sure who is the best PO or person to point to. Okay. Follow-up question with Deb afterwards. Yes.
So then, with this, would we create an initial installer that effectively installs the package manager client onto the target computer, maybe telling it, okay, here's your primary feed that they can just run, and it automatically then knows where it's subscribing to and where and what it's supposed to be pulling? Or is there what sort of training material and or examples take you to, okay, I've got an application, here's how I'm creating the packages, deploying drivers, my application, etc.
There is this bit.ly link on here. This has a ton of resources that Alan, I'm not sure if Alan Shu is in the room, but Alan Shu has put together a lot of training materials, examples, workflows, so that you're able to use best practices and be able to handle a lot of those use cases.
Is this going to be replacing a more traditional installer, or is this something that's going to be kind of going to continue alongside what we normally use now as our installer that would install all of the drivers or whatnot that we might have?
Yeah, so I believe this is, we still have the ability to create traditional installers. This will create the installer and still have all of the drivers and dependencies as packages themselves. Eric, is this?
Yeah.
True. Okay.
Over time, the package management software replaces the traditional installer. So in 2019, you can still build both. But going forward, the way that you'll link, you create the dependencies and relationships will all be done in packages. And that's consistent across LabVIEW and LabVIEW NXG. LabVIEW NXG only knows how to deal with that.
Because my primary concern is offline installation. And I mean, going up and talking to the cloud or even a network server is not really an option. Everything has to be done.
Yeah, the workflow, if you follow the workflow, Alan's got an example there, but the workflow talks about how to build a self-sustaining installer, which, as Aaron was talking about, includes installing via the NI package manager and then running the deployed package feed as a local standalone installer. So you can build all of that in the app builder package management option all at the same time, where you can build them just packages if you want to deploy just the standalone package, or you can build a feed without the package management. So there's lots of different options depending on how you want to do it.
If you have questions pertaining to offline installers and what the future of that looks like and what the current state of that looks like, just to quickly recap for those of you who might not have been able to hear this front two rows conversation, there is the ability to create these installers using the package installer format so that you're able to deploy them in an offline basis to other machines. Again, I navigate you to the bit.ly link here because there is a ton of resources to handle a lot of these use cases. Transitioning over to LabVIEW NXG, as Eric had mentioned, LabVIEW NXG already operates on the package model, so to speak, of how it handles dependencies and how it is able to distribute code. But there's a lot of other things that we've added in to help you with deployment. How many of you are using test stand? Are any of you using test stand with LabVIEW NXG yet? Not yet. All right. So we do have the LabVIEW NXG adapter for test stand. So you're able to call the code alongside any of the other code that you have running in test stand, whether it be LabVIEW, whether it be Python, whether it be all of these different items. So if you want to add your skills of LabVIEW NXG as you're transitioning over, this will be something that can work side by side. Another feature I'm really excited to share with you is the export hardware configuration file in LabVIEW NXG. So the use case for this is, say you have all of your hardware set up for a particular system. You have all of the drivers set for a particular setup. So you have your PXI chassis and everything included in that. And you're trying to figure out, when you go to deploy this, how do you make sure that the person that is going to be on the deployment machine has all of the information that they need to be successful with the system. So what this hardware configuration file does is it takes a snapshot of everything that you have in that current system. So it has all of the hardware, and then it also has all of the drivers that are needed for the versioning that is in that code. So you're able to send that file over, so the next person who's picking the system up and building it, whether it be the same day or months down the line, knows all of the versioning, knows all of the hardware, and all of the setup that you have available to you. This is a functionality that we're able to put into LabVIEW NXG because it has been built from the ground up. That has been newer in implementation. Yes?
How tolerant is it towards variations in that, for example, if you go back to both traditional DAC and DAC MX, if my computer might enumerate my let's say I had 3 MIO cards, all different types. If I have 2 identical computers, one of them might have enumerated card 1 as Dev 1, but the second one might have enumerated the second card as device 1. And trying to distribute configurations in that case would, with the tools you had, would break, where a lot of my code now just goes in and ignores maps and does everything, detect this device, is it in the correct slot because it might not get the correct device number. So how well does this handle those situations?
I might point to one of the POs.
Yeah, I can answer that question.
Yeah.
So what's in LabVIEW NXG 3.1 is essentially the same matching algorithm that you have when you try to deploy the max NCD file. we're working on for a very close future release of LabVIEW NXG is the ability for you to pick and choose what maps to what when you're applying the hardware configuration. So if there are some mismatches or ambiguities, you can map those up yourselves. That's coming soon.
Great, thank you for answering that. All right, any other questions? Cool. How many of you are wanting to share your user interface with stakeholders that are on another machine? Whether that be in your company, whether that be somebody that wants remote access from their cell phone or something like this. So in LabVIEW NXG, we have released the LabVIEW NXG web module about a year and a half ago. Every release of LabVIEW NXG has had a ton of new features for the LabVIEW NXG web module. What this allows you to do is distribute your user interface to any web-based client, so you can visualize your process data anywhere, anytime. You don't have to have any plugins or anything like this, and you're able to efficiently share your UIs with stakeholders without having to be an expert in any of the traditional tools required to successfully deploy code. How many of you are already using the LabVIEW NXG web module? One waving hand. Okay. Hopefully after this presentation you'll be really excited about what the web module can provide to you. Some of the new features that we've introduced in the LabVIEW NXG web module are more enhancements to be able to reuse existing JavaScript libraries with the JavaScript library interface. So you're able to pull in existing IP. Also, you're able to host your web APIs on an NI-provided cloud hosting service. So System Link Cloud, for those of you who aren't familiar, we do have the ability to host your code to System Link Cloud. There's a session on it that you can attend later. As well as you're able to support dynamic UIs, properties, and events. And you're able to automatically resize your web APIs to fit different screen sizes. So it's mobile optimized for that. Michael's going to demonstrate what this feature looks like.
Thanks, Kelly. So with the LabVIEW NXG web module, we've introduced the new flexible panel layout to give you a greater ability to communicate information when hosting your applications on the web. So in this demonstration, we're going to kind of compare what it was without the flexible layout and then see how the flexible layout gives you the opportunity to optimize your web applications and responsive towards the screen size. So in this demo, I've created a wind turbine station monitoring BI. It's giving me critical insights into one of my wind turbine assets. So I have different data such as wind direction, wind speed, and various other indicators on here to let me know about the performance of my wind turbine. And with LabVIEW NXG, we can go ahead and run this in our browser to see what it would look like when it deploys on the web. And we'll notice that LabVIEW NXG does a great job if I'm viewing this on a large screen, maybe in the office. But if I'm viewing this on a smaller screen size, that's when we can start getting into some issues here. These sizes here. So we'll notice that as my screen size shrinks, different data can get cut off, which isn't great if I want to view this on a phone, on the go. It's not as easy to view all the information. So let's go ahead and go back to LabVIEW NXG, and we can actually, within the panel properties, specify this to be a flexible layout. And we'll notice that LabVIEW automatically sends all of my user interface items to my unplaced items folder here to allow me to customize my front panel as I need it. So we can go ahead and now build our front panel very quickly by just dragging and dropping the different elements. So I will just go ahead and add these elements here. And we'll notice that they get sorted in this blue box, which helps me group different elements that I want to remain together. And we can do the same with my other indicators here. And we can put them in a different box so that these will all remain grouped together. We also have some abilities to customize it. So here I'm going to center my data and the title here to make it look nice and pretty when I run it in my browser. So we can go ahead now and run this in our browser and see what the difference is. So again, with the flexible layout, it's great when we're looking on a large screen, and we can see what happens when the screen size shrinks. So maybe you're on a smartphone. We'll see that the flexible layout automatically stacks all my items here so that I can easily scroll through my phone and get all the data insights that I need to check out. So pretty cool. It makes it a lot easier to convey information with these web applications. And there's a question over there.
Do the individual items resize?
So the individual items won't be sized. So if I have a picture that has a greater width than my phone, that will not resize itself.
Some do resize, but not every single one.
Yeah, so a graph can resize here. So as this shrinks, we can specify some items to resize. And what was great is I don't have any HTML experience. Just as a LabVIEW developer, you don't have to spend a lot of time learning web scripting in order to have this functionality.
Any more questions about the WebVI? How many of you can see this being relevant for some of the applications that you're building? Good. One thing that's very important to note about the web module is we recognize that this functionality is built off of the LabVIEW NXG platform, but many of you are still using LabVIEW from earlier versions. And so you're able to use the WebVI, or you're able to build WebVIs and call data from previous versions of LabVIEW. So if you have code from LabVIEW 2017, for example, you're able to use the different APIs to be able to get that data hosted and then be able to pull it into your LabVIEW NXG WebVI. So this will really be able to help bridge that gap between what you're currently working on. You don't have to build all of your previous applications if you just want the web interface. You're able to still get that leverage of using LabVIEW and LabVIEW NXG together. Again, there are a lot of technical sessions related to WebVIs and the LabVIEW NXG web module, as well as if you're curious about the NI hosting service is System Link Cloud. There's another session on that later. So there's a hands-on that is happening later on this afternoon, as well as on Thursday, if you're curious to just get in and explore and try it out on your own. And then there's also the session right after this, which Rita is going to be presenting. So if you just want to stay put, you're able to get all of the knowledge of the LabVIEW NXG web module. Additionally, as this session is only an hour and we try to compact the content so that you have time for questions, there's a lot of features that we've added that we didn't actually speak through. There's this slide, as well as there is the information that you're able to check out on the web, so you can learn more about that. So this is the set of new features from LabVIEW 2019. I'll wait, give you a second to snap your photos. And in LabVIEW NXG, this photo might be harder to see because there is so much in the latest features for LabVIEW NXG 3.0 and 3.1. I encourage you strongly to check out LabVIEW NXG if you haven't already. There is a ton of hardware that's already supported. There's more than 700 third-party drivers to support third-party hardware. You're able to get in touch with how intuitive a lot of the hardware configuration and everything like that is. We recognize that many of you are here because you want to know more about the roadmap for what is the future of LabVIEW. We post the LabVIEW NXG roadmap, which is publicly available on our website, so you're able to keep up to date with the newest features that we have in product. Many of you are hands-on learners, and so if you subscribe to the NI Software Technology Preview, you're able to get access to the earliest, to the most recent beta of the next version of LabVIEW NXG. Also, as you're transitioning your skills over from LabVIEW to LabVIEW NXG, we do have a course available for you if you're wanting to have more guided access on what has changed between the two environments. The IDEs, we wanted them to still be intuitive and learnable, but there are some things that are different, so we have courseware available for you. And for the new users who aren't as familiar with LabVIEW yet, we encourage them to just start off with LabVIEW NXG. We have had a lot of feedback that it's a very intuitive, getting started experience, and we have the courseware available to make that process even easier for people. How many of you have used something from the LabVIEW Tools Network before? How many of you are using software that isn't LabVIEW that you need an add-on or additional functionality for? So we have realized over time that LabVIEW Tools Network is a little bit incomplete for the name and the functionality that we all need. And so we are rebranding the LabVIEW Tools Network to be NI Tools Network because it already has hosted for quite some time add-ons for LabVIEW, TestStand, VeriStand, as well as has held completely standalone applications and web-based and other products. For those of you who aren't as familiar with what currently is offered in the Tools Network or think that you might want to put something of your own creation up for available to be used by other customers, many of the tools will break into two different buckets. One is enabling the system, giving you that crucial technology in order to move forward. And the next bucket is in completing the system, which is a lot of these finer detail items. A quick recap, the themes of the release of LabVIEW NXG 3.1 and LabVIEW 2019 are to help you program with purpose so you're able to use the best tool for the job, find your resources easier, improve your interoperability, debug with insights. We're hoping to save you hours of productivity and hours of development time. And we really encourage you to check out what LabVIEW 2019 and LabVIEW NXG have in store, as well as increasing the deployment efficiency that you can gain by moving over to some of our recommended best practices for deployment and dependency management. LabVIEW 2019 and LabVIEW NXG. As a reminder, improving developer efficiency. Before you go, please take the survey. The results that come from the survey are really how we know what type of information you're interested in. It lets me know what items you're emphasizing and what are the features that you're most excited about to be using in product, as well as help us know what we should be planning for the entire rest of the conference. So, thank you.